Welcome everybody. First, Royal Land, at the end of this call, you're going to have a survey that's going to pop up. Would love it if you could give us some honest feedback about everything you experienced here today and anything that you would like for the future as well with these calls. On top of that, we are getting ready to announce RevOps AF 2025. I don't know if you've seen our LinkedIn, if you've seen the chat, you've seen some of our newsletter stuff. We've been dropping a bunch of hints. So if you have any idea in the hints of where RevOps AF 2025 is going to be, feel free to go comment hashtag RevOps 2025 and DM Matt, myself, or Kamala, or anybody from the RevOps co-op team about where you think it's going to be, and you get a chance at a free ticket. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get this kicked off. And I'm going to pass over to you, Anita.
Okay, thanks, Dylan. Welcome everybody to the call today. Really excited to be here. We're going to talk about a few different things today. But first, let's introduce ourselves. My co-panelist is Lance. I'll let him introduce himself first.
Thank you, Anita. My name is Lance Thompson, and I'm a technical sales operations at Seekout. Seekout's a startup. I've been there almost 4 years and started out building up the RevOps section, specifically setting up a lot of the tools involved with that. And now I continue working on tools and processes. And so one of the things I implemented was Gong about 2 years ago. I have a lot of experience using that to improve our processes over at Seekout. So we'll talk into some of those strategies as we go forward.
All right, awesome. So my name's Anita Gormley. I work currently at Gong. I've been here for about 3.5 years. I'm currently chief of staff to the CMO, but that's a recent transition for me. Most of my previous time at Gong has been spent in RevOps, similar to what Lance was talking about, helping to build the RevOps team from the ground up. And I've been in RevOps in total for about 16 years. And before we jump in today, I want to give a quick overview of some of the challenges that I've had in the past as a RevOps person that I'm now seeing AI helping me to solve. And so one of the things that the AI does for me that helps me to solve those problems is by capturing all of the activity data, calls, and meeting data, has helped to work out some of those things that I've had problems with in the past. For me personally, in supporting a sales organization or a CS organization, has been trying to get really to the bottom of what's going on in a deal or with an account so that I can understand how to build a forecast. I think for me, that was always one of the very biggest pain points was it was up to me to make sure that we had a pretty accurate forecast for whatever group that I was supporting at the time. And it's really hard to do that without realistic data. And AI capture, I've learned over the last few years, has in many ways started to make this so much easier. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is using AI with deal management. Specifically, Gong calls it deal boards. You can call it pipeline, whatever you or your company calls it. And the first thing is AI playbooks. For those of you that aren't familiar with that specific terminology, it is a Gong terminology, but really it's just a way to track your sales methodology in your deal boards. And so what you do is you build a customized playbook to align to whatever sales methodology you use. And then you just use that to track the progress within the methodology and within the deal. And whatever those key things are that your company needs answered is being answered. And so what I've found in my experience is that when we have gaps in our methodology, that's what hurts our forecast accuracy. And it's not about having a rep going in and filling in a bunch of information just for the sake of filling it out. It's about understanding what's going on in the deal. And so while I, as a RevOps person, am interested in certain parts of the methodology, like, for instance, how are we going to get a deal signed? I've learned over time that all parts of that is important. And so adhering to all parts of the methodology so that we can understand each of those pieces is important for us to know. And it takes all of those elements to know what's going on in the deal. And so the way that it works is similar to other methodologies. Your AE can fill information in on each part of the playbook, so they can actually come in here and type a note in, which is problematic, potentially prone to error, or in the case of this screenshot, we're using MedPick as the example. And you can see under decision criteria, the rep actually hasn't put a note in, which is probably pretty common and what many of you face in the past. And so the AI has come up with a suggestion based on what it's hearing and seeing in the calls and the emails from the customer, this AI suggested note. And so in this case, it's telling us the customer is interested in the ROI, they're interested in understanding scalability and how our system integrates with other existing systems. Even if you don't have an AE who's very disciplined in how they're filling out playbooks, you are still getting comprehensive data through the AI and a very complete look at what's going on in the deal. So then as you are doing those deal reviews or your forecast calls with your sales reps or your leadership team, this helps you find those gaps a lot quicker and easier. And the same functionality also reveals gaps like I was just talking about. So for example, if I was looking here and there wasn't an AI suggestion, then what that potentially means is that your AE hasn't even talked to the customer about it. And you can also use that during deal reviews to help guide the conversation with the reps. I see a question in the chat about saving it within the CRM. It is captured in CRM in the opportunity related data. And so you can use that then to pull that out of your CRM in any way that you want to. For reporting purposes, you can, one way that we've thought about using it is with like a workflow tool, and you can pick up on certain things within the playbook that you are or you aren't seeing to create reminders for the team. So if you have, for example, decision criteria that's blank and there's no AI, you could potentially create an automation around that if that's something that was important to your company, with a notification to remind people to talk about that.
Reps also have the ability to go in here and update directly in Gong and have that tie back. And so we have the option of automating that automatically or leaving it to the reps to translate it.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's that topic. Lance is going to take us a little bit deeper on how his company is using it as well.
In our case, we use Medic as well. And so within a deal board, you can click directly in and see what's happening there. In our case, our Chris, who's our VP of sales, set up an anchor deals deal board looking at the key deals that make or break our quarter. And the first time we were going through that, Bryce, our CRO, is looking at a deal and saying, this looks like an important deal, but some of the Medic information isn't filled in properly. And so that's where he's able to go in and see whether it was just the rep hasn't filled it in yet or whether there's information here that would show that. One handy piece about the AI in this case is a lot of times the reps may fill in a deal, the information on a deal early, but then now it's several months later if it's a larger deal, and the AI can sometimes give you more current information on what that is. Like you may have an answer for a couple of months ago, but there's notes from calls and emails the last couple of weeks that will better steer you into what's happening now. And then, as we talked about as well, then you also have the ability to have reps update the CRM directly for these fields that aren't filled in directly from here where they have that extra information. So that's been pretty handy.
Awesome. Thanks, Lance. Okay, moving on to the next topic within deal boards is scores and warnings. And so this goes hand in hand with what I was just talking about that you can see in a deal board. So as you're looking at a deal board, there are a couple of columns. One is a score column and one is a warnings column. Your deals may or may not have a warning, but you should always have a score, and it will be either green, red, or gray. And if you click on the score, like in the top screenshot here, it shows you the positive signs of what's going on in the deal and the negative signs. And so in this example, the score is low for a few different reasons. And there's a few different red flags that the system, that the AI has determined are going on. And so, for instance, in this case, I'll point out that this deal is single threaded. There are also some positive things going on with the deal, and so you can see that as well. And then at the bottom, you'll also see the warnings. And again, single threading is a warning here. And there are a couple of other things on this particular deal that are considered warnings. And these are based on things that the AI has learned over time work better in your deals and improve your win rates. And when it sees those things missing, it can give you a warning about it. And it just helps you zero in over time on what helps you win and lose deals. And so the way that we use this is a couple of different ways. Of course, having it right in front of you as you're doing a deal review means that you're not having to, a manager's not having to go through, or a RevOps person is not having to go through and listen to all of the calls and filter through a bunch of information. It's presented right there to you when you're looking at the deal. And then if you want to go a step beyond, you can do something similar to what we were talking about with the playbooks, is you can filter that data to your CRM and use it to create reminders or notifications of different things that are missing. For instance, if you are really focused on enablement with your reps on making sure that they multi-thread their deals, you could in particular use that warning to create some sort of a notification for the team. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'm going to keep moving. To-dos are the next things that kind of go along with this. We haven't quite operationalized this one yet, but I wanted to give just a couple of glimpses on this call of things that the Gong team is thinking of that might help spark some ideas for some others. So this is around the to-dos that are in the Engage product. And one component of that is this dashboard that has things to follow up on that the AI has detected. So it could be related to an account, or it could be related to a specific deal. And reps can go in there and just see a list of everything that they need to do to catch up with what's going on in that particular situation. So as an example, you send an email to a customer, but they didn't respond. And so the to-do you'll get is, hey, this person didn't respond to you. Can you send another, you should send another email. Or another example is you said in a call or in an email that you were going to send the customer something and you haven't done it yet. So you'll get a reminder in your to-dos to take those actions. And so what we're thinking about doing is, from the previous slide that I was showing, those screenshots of the warnings and the score, the things that are driving the score of the deal, taking some of those things out and using those to create a to-do. So within the actual product, using those things. So again, if we were using multi-threading as an example, if we saw those warnings from the previous screen that we were looking at in a deal board, we're thinking about which ones would be the right things to use to populate a to-do list here. And that way, reps just have less that they have to think about personally about doing on a daily basis, and it's more about they have an automated task list in front of them. All right, I'm going to move on to the next section, which is AI summaries. And this is just a little bit newer things that have been developed to prompt the AI to summarize statuses and data for you. So the first one is Ask Anything. And this one is what we use to ask questions about a deal or an account. And the AI will generate answers for you based on what's heard in the conversations. And so there's a lot of different questions you can ask, lots of different examples of the questions. In this example, I typed, why will we lose a deal? And this is something as RevOps that we do quite often when we're in deal review calls or forecast calls. As the rep is talking us through the deal, I tend to ask the AI different kinds of questions so that I can help the rep find risk that they haven't identified yet. And it also takes me back to what I was saying at the beginning about how it's important as RevOps people that we're building really accurate forecasts for the business. This helps that as well. And so in this example, the top bullet says that the customer says, for example, they can't afford our solution at that time, which is obviously a big red flag. And something as a RevOps person can bring up during these calls to say, okay, it sounds like they're saying they can't afford us, or they have concerns about how they can technically integrate. And then these things will answer questions like, do you need to get an executive involved, an SC, the deal desk to help you structure the deal, and things like that. And then other ideas that I have on the slide of ways that you can use this to uncover risk is by asking back to methodology. You can ask methodology specific questions about who's the economic buyer, or how many signatures do you need on the customer side so that you can understand the decision process. And another cool thing that we've started using it for in RevOps is for comp disputes. So we often get put in the middle of deciding who gets compensation on a deal. And you don't know, as a RevOps person, did it come from a partner? Did it come from the SDR? Did it come from an AE? Who knows? And so we've started asking the AI who sourced the deal to have it give us a summary. And that helps us start to understand what's happening in
really
the deal for
interesting.
comp purposes.
That's one I didn't think of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deepak had a question of where this information was coming from. He was asking about emails. From my understanding, it's coming both from emails as well as call data. It'll tell you as it comes up, like where it's coming from. It'll say it found this information from this email a couple weeks ago. It found this information from this call that happened 2 months ago. So it labels pretty well where that comes from. It's Seekout. We found this is really useful early on in the deal when you've had the first discovery call, the first demo call. That's when you really need to make sure that you've set the foundation well. So we'll ask questions like, do we have a compelling use case? Have we established that Seekout is a good solution for what they're trying to do? Basically and even like, what is their need? What are they trying to do? And you can tell right away whether those questions have been answered or whether we need to circle back and make sure we really have the value we need going forward. One thing I wanted to point out, getting adoption on a tool like Gong, a lot of things we've seen so far require that people are actively using it. People are going in, both the reps themselves and the sales leaders, to actually use the tool, to use a lot of the AI things like that. It also provides a lot of information that we can just automatically include in the database to make lives easier on the reps for basically a lot of busy work that they had to do in the past that they now don't. One of the key things on the AI side is we take the call recaps that happen from the call brief and the recap in history, and we automatically include those in kind of the next steps field. It's not the standard next steps field that come with Salesforce, because that one is too limited in how many characters we can use. But yeah, we automatically update the opportunity based on the AI summary of the call. And that makes it so reps basically don't have to do a big long recap of what happened. Most of the information is already there, and they can add notes of what they feel was missed or anything else that's key that they can add. But most of the time, that step is not needed. And then just things in the background that happen automatically that we've set up are all the contact roles. Everybody on a call we add as a contact role on an opportunity. If somebody isn't in Gong or in Salesforce as a contact yet, we're putting that person in. And then all the history that's happening through email, if it didn't happen through something that happened in Salesforce or a meeting was scheduled, all that activity starts to go into Salesforce. So you have a better view all around of what's happening. And you're then doing that without the reps having to do that extra busy work.
Nice. Thanks, Lance. This is a bit of a data nerd question, but how do you determine which contacts you put back into CRM? And do you ever have problems with deduplication or just a bunch of contacts back in your CRM then?
The flow will basically automatically check by email address whether or not they're already in there or not. And so we basically go, if the email is not there, then we add them in. So there's a chance if somebody has multiple emails, they may get added in. But other than that, we feel it's valuable to bring them in.
Nice.
There is some logic that's needed to determine first name and last name because both are required in our system.
Yeah.
And so every once in a while that can fail and it may not be exactly right because you're determining, do we have a first name? And if we don't have a first name and last name, then we may skip bringing that person in.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm going to go to the next slide. And this one is very much hand in hand with asking a specific question, the Ask Anything. This is an account summary. So it's a way you can ask a specific question of the AI in the Ask Anything feature. And so if you click on this little deal or account toggle button and click on account, you can ask it to provide you a summary of the account that you're looking at. And whether it's a prospect and where they are in the deal cycle, or whether it's a customer and where they are with their renewal or their upsell, or what the health of the customer is. And the AI returns a summarized view of the account, including who's involved, what their pains and priorities are, and really what their overall feelings about your company is based on, again, same thing like we were talking about from Deepak's question, based on call and email capture. And it's also, so it's helpful obviously for RevOps as we're doing deal reviews and forecast reviews and things like that. It's also like another side benefit that it's extremely helpful for is we have an executive alignment program. And so we have executives that are associated to high dollar prospects and high dollar customers. And in the past, we've had to, like RevOps has had to spend the time chasing AEs or chasing a CSM to write up an account summary for the executive so that they are able to walk into that conversation with the customer prepared. Now an executive can just go into Gong and type this, and they can get an automatic summary of the health of the account and what's going on and what renewals are coming up so that they know really everything that they need to know to have a conversation with the customer. Okay, I don't see any other questions in the chat right now, so I'm going to keep going. Performance is an area that Gong has helped with for a while in understanding the activities that reps are doing and how they compare with their peers. There's a whole scorecard feature, but this is slightly different what I'm going to talk about today. We've recently introduced rep scorecards, and we're still in the process of developing and building a discipline around it. But the way that we do this particular thing is we extract all the activity, data, and metrics out of Gong at an individual or CSM level. And these can be sent to, Gong has integrations with external databases. There's lots of API connections out there with different companies that you can use. And so we send it to an external database, and then you can group it and by however you slice your data. You can combine then that data with performance data, which is the thing that we've started doing to correlate activity to actual rep performance. So if you see a certain rep has a high volume of calls and emails in a month or a quarter, and you can correlate to that high volume of whether they hit their quota or not. And then you can see quarter over quarter their activity and how that correlates to their performance. And so that's a measurable way of seeing what's going on with each rep. But then you can also use it to compare performance across the whole team. And so what you can see is, what are the highest performers doing? Are the highest performers on 6 calls every day? Are they on 2 calls every day? And how are they using their time more efficiently? And what are they doing that's getting them to hit their quota or exceed their quota as compared to other people who aren't doing that? And so like in these screenshots, for example, these are screenshots of the actual rep scorecards that's talking about, for an individual person, their volume of calls by some specific time, and what their top 3 metrics are and what their bottom 3 metrics are. And these are again compared to their cohorts. And then the second screenshot is comparing activity to their actual quota performance and pipeline coverage as well.
I'd be looking forward to using this more.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are the kind of things that we're typically just making a little Salesforce dashboard for, where you only have so much information to gather from there.
Mhm. Yeah. It's like I said, it's pretty new to us at Gong and we're just rolling it out this quarter, but it's been pretty well received so far. So we're liking it and building on it. Okay, last section. This is a way just to track key moments that are going on. And it's like a generalized term, but I'm going to talk about a few different ways that we do this. One is using smart trackers for competitive information. And what smart trackers are is a way that you can train the AI within Gong to learn context around a conversation of things that you want to understand better. So for example, on this slide, as I'm talking about competitive smart trackers, you can start with keywords or phrases related to your competition. And then when the AI hears that, it knows and understands what you're talking about so that it can flag those things for you. So if any of you are familiar with the original tracker feature, what that does is it just looks for keywords and points those out to you. The smart tracker is the one that where you start with those keywords and phrases, but then it learns over time how to pull the context out of conversation to where it matches those. So with that as a backdrop, I want to give you a quick view on how we use smart trackers to gather competitive data. And this relates to pain that I've faced in the past as a RevOps person, which I'm sure many of the RevOps folks out there will understand, which is if understanding if you fully penetrated an account with your product or not. And the way that I've seen this tackled in the past is a couple of different ways. At first, it was just manual. We would set up a very complicated matrix in CRM and ask our reps to fill out that matrix with what is the customer using? What features are they using our product for? Are they using competitors for those features? And we asked the rep to fill out this very complex matrix, product by product and competitor by competitor, with renewal dates if they know it. And it required a lot of manual effort on RevOps side, on the rep side. And even if they did go gather the answers to those questions, sometimes it wouldn't make it into CRM. And it just didn't work. And another thing that we tried was a combination of the manual approach with information that we get from data providers. So in a lot of those cases, you can get data from data providers that gives you competitive data, and they can provide you information on which companies people are doing business with and what type of technology they use. And so we were trying to combine that data that we would buy from a third party with a manual approach by the reps. And the problem was the data was incomplete. It wasn't very accurate. And so we tried a combination of that and it just didn't work either. And so now what we're doing is we're using the smart trackers to understand the context around competitive conversations and like when are we losing in specific deals? What competitors are we winning or losing against? And what are their offerings and how are they better in the market or how is their pricing better? And so that we can use that to understand how we're winning and losing in competitive and in non-competitive situations. Something that we've considered doing is creating upsell opportunities based on this info. We haven't yet, just because it potentially could create a lot of noise. So we're trying to be thoughtful about how we do it. But if you're able to look at an account and understand what competitors they have relative to your solutions, and even what those renewal dates are, and if you're having those conversations, the AI can pick up on that. And then you could use that information to create an upsell opportunity automatically that flows into the CRM. And then on this, another feature right now, this is a beta feature, and we're calling it themes internally. I'm not sure what it's going to be called externally, but this is just a way for you to identify common things across a lot of calls, and where a smart tracker looks within a particular, it looks individually within particular accounts. the theme can look across many accounts and many conversations. And so in this case, we've been using that to look at across all conversations or all recent conversations, how are specific competitors coming up and how are we best posed to win against those competitors, or how are we losing against those competitors? And what are the particular themes that we're hearing behind why we're winning and losing?
Where we've used this smart tracker functionality is we were introducing a new product to the market that went it's going to a slightly different audience and it has a slightly different talk track. We're kind of identifying when are those conversations coming up and are we saying the right things when they happen, especially when it's a new learning motion. And the kind of extra work it takes to make a smart tracker was then worth it for that type of situation.
Yeah. What is the extra part of it, just like the learning that the smart trackers had to do over time?
In our case, to build the smart trackers, we started with the keywords, but then
Yeah.
we reviewed a bunch of the calls to say, out of all these that popped up, is this a fit or is this not? And so that really was able to hone in the smart tracker. So you have to spend a good 10, 15 minutes going through those, but then over time, it makes it a lot more valuable what it then spits back at you.
I like that. I like that use case. That's great. Okay. Last topic of the day related to that is keyword searching. You can use trackers or smart trackers for what I'm talking about here. We happen to use it with keyword searching. But this is a nod to my new role at Gong. I've moved in the marketing organization and I'm starting to learn how that team is using it. And something that popped up for me, a cool way that they're using AI is in the ways that we find how we can gift our customers. I'm sure, like we do, many of you, the marketing and the sales organization work together to send customized gifts to customers that either gets them interested in your product or helps them return a call from an SDR or helps an AE build a relationship with the prospect. And so the way that the marketing team has been using this is using the AI to search for specific things that we have gifting solutions around. So in this case, this is a keyword search for cooking. And so we're looking for customers who have talked about liking to cook, or they're a foodie, or they've tried a new recipe this week. And then the marketing team can prompt the AE or the SDR and say, here's a way to use some of your gifting dollars this month with this particular customer. They're interested in cooking. We've got this cool new branded cooking package that you could send them with some recipes or some tools or something. And I thought that was a really cool, interesting way. We always have marketing and RevOps and sales who are working together on allocating those budgets for gifting solutions, tracking those budgets, and getting sales to use that. And that's, I think, a pretty neat way to find opportunities for that.
Yeah, it's a nice little easy button.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The kind of bread and butter thing we do here is, as a tool in the HR space, a lot of times we're connecting directly to their applicant tracking system. And so a lot of times we're talking about that, but it's not necessarily getting in the database. And so that's a keyword of tracking the names of the ATS systems so that we know exactly who has what and then can better target those companies going forward where we have an advantage.
I like that. Okay, that's all the content that I have for today. It's been super fun, and I know that we're open for questions, so I'll turn it back to Dylan.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. I know we built this out, so I know we have a lot of Gong users in the communities. While we still have about 10 minutes left, if there's any remaining questions, anything from Gong that you want to throw out there that we've covered today or something that while we have the Gong experts here that they can answer and help with, please let us know. Other than that, if not, I have dropped in both of their LinkedIn links. Feel free to go ahead and add them. And if I know Anita and I know Lance from these last couple of calls that we had, they would be happy to help or point you in the right direction for somebody who can help. And also, as always, I am available too. But with that being said, I think we, at the end of this, should have a questionnaire pop up. If you could please fill it out, let us know what you thought about today and what do you think about future events as well. What would you like to see? We'd love to hear that. If nothing else in the chat, I want to thank both of y'all for joining us today, Lance and Anita. That was amazing, and we're looking forward to do more stuff with Gong and having you back on again, Lance.
Thank you.
Awesome, cool. All right, we'll see y'all, and everybody have an amazing rest of your week.